The book has a goal to teach us 4 topics that we talked about, which is how to have admiration for God, what we call Yirat Shamayim, how to correct our character, what we call Tikkun Midot. Walking God's ways is how do we develop and correct our character. Number 3, how do we learn to love God? And number 4, how do we do it with the right kavanah, with the right intentions when we do it? So those are the 4 topics of the book. And the way we get there is by taking 9 steps, which are split to 3 groups. Of the first 3 is you become a tzaddik, which means someone who does what's expected of him. The next group of 3, someone becomes what's called a chassid, someone who goes above the letter of the law. And the last group of 3 is someone who is a kadosh, which is someone that has no other reality but godliness, and he becomes a person that has Ruach HaKodesh, which is the one level down from prophecy that still exists in the highest spiritual level you can reach. And again, each group of 3 has 12 steps, and our main expectation or goal of ours that we try to reach is to become a tzaddik, and that is the first 12 chapters that we work on. So what the Ramchal does is very interesting. Before we jump into the actual practical steps of developing our character, the first one being zehirut, which is, zehirut means the opposite of habit, the opposite of being just led by our instincts or by our low desires, right? That's zehirut. But before we go into the steps, the Ramchal, being the master educator that he is, he has everything organized according to systems. You have to understand certain foundations. You cannot take the next step if you haven't understood the first idea. So what's the first idea that the Ramchal tells us? That without understanding this idea, there's nobody to talk to. There's nobody home. What is the idea? The idea is Olam Haba. Unless you understand the concept of Olam Haba, you cannot begin to take the steps. And in order to explain Olam Haba, he gives us 5 different angles of explanation on different aspects of explaining to you what Olam Haba is, and from 5 different angles. Maybe it's for 5 different types of people that need different ways of being convinced. Maybe it's just different levels. But those are the 5 levels. We spoke about 2.5 about last week, and we'd like to finish them today, the rest. So what was your question?
So he says that the reason why you have to understand Olam Haba is because that's the path to Yirat Hashem.
In other words, it's a good question. Why do you have to understand Olam Haba? Because basically, the opposite of building personality is building image, right? What is an image? It's shallow, it's superficial, it's external. And we're living in a world that unfortunately is very shallow and superficial and external, the way people look at it. So the Ramchal says, if you don't understand Olam Haba, which means if you don't understand that there is a body and there's a soul, there's a higher level and there's a lower level. If you don't understand, if you can't internalize that there's something that you cannot grasp with your physical senses, but it's more valuable and more eternal and more real than anything else you could grasp, so there's nobody home. You have to have a deeper understanding of the reality that you see, not just what you see exists. What does that mean? I brought some idea to explain it. There's a beautiful midrash. Yes.
It means that metaphysical reality is more than just what we perceive.
Yes. In other words, the spiritual world is real, it exists, and you have to invest in it, and it's eternal, and it's more valuable than anything you can grasp. So that, before you understand that, you cannot start taking steps on developing your character, on becoming a better person, because you need to first understand that there's a deeper, it's like you're looking at a 3D picture. And if you're looking at it and all you see is the page, you're not there. You need to be able to suddenly see the 3 dimensions. Once you see the 3 dimensions, you understand there's a bigger picture to what there is. So that's what the Ramchal wants to do in the first chapter, is to show you that there's 3 dimensions to the world. There's a deeper dimension, and you need to get out of your shallow, superficial way of looking at the world. So I wanted to say a beautiful midrash. We're coming into the parshas of Yaakov and Esav, and this is really the battle and the struggle. There's a beautiful midrash that there was a pile of a farmer harvest all of his wheat, and there was a big pile of hay, shaft, and mulch. Okay, so everything's there, and you have also the seed of the seed of the of wheat. And so these three things, the hay, the shaft, and the malt are arguing. Who did the farmer plant the field? So the first one says, oh, the hay came out first. I came out first, but I protected I did this, I did that. Everyone's talking, and then they asked the seed, what about you? What do you have to say? Why aren't you in the argument? He said, I don't have to even discuss the argument. I just have to wait till the farmer comes, and we'll see what he chooses. The farmer comes with his pitchfork, throws up in the air all the bundle of whatever was there. The mulch goes flying in the wind. The hay goes flying in the wind, and the shaft, and what's left is the seed. And then the seed says, you see, let the farmer decide. So that's basically the parable of the story, is that for sure God created the world for the Jewish people. And especially you see Esav, he was born, he came out first. So it's like when you have wheat, first comes out the outside part. Esav's whole existence, his whole reality, is to focus on the wrapper, on the outside of the world, and making taking the means and turning it into the goal. That's Esav's expertise. Just the external reality, just the external world, the nails, the makeup, the hair, the eyes, the eyebrows, the whole industry, perfumes, the screen, cosmetics, everything. And again, not that it's not important, but we do not live in this world to have pleasure. We have pleasure in order to live in this world, in order to serve God. So we're not against the pleasure, but you can't turn the goal into the means into the goal. Esav comes to his father and says, how do you get Meiser for salt? His whole reality is salt. You have a good meal, you sprinkle a little bit of salt on the meal, it brings out a nice taste, right? The external thing, the what we call the right, it's the salt is, they say, tafel to the ikar, is it's the means for the main meal. And but Esav's world is, how do I take the external things that are not as important and make it the reality of everything? Yes.
So you said we do not live in this world for pleasure.
Pleasure is not the goal. Pleasure is a need.
Pleasure helps us live in this world. It's not the goal, it's the need.
You have to sleep well. You have to eat well in order to serve God. But it's not a goal. You don't live to sleep. You don't live to eat. You live to serve God, and you need to eat well and sleep well in order to do it. So it's not the goal. It's the means, and that's the thing that gets mixed up here. So Esav, what's the Zohar or Rav Kook explains what's the positive thing in what Esav is saying, or in what's in focusing on the means. And again, what we mentioned in the first class, because the first class, I'm just going over the first class we mentioned that the first step is, what is the goal, right? We said foundations of everything is to first, mahi chovato, what's your goal? What is your purpose in life? Okay, we said it. The purpose in life is getting close to God. So now we know the goal is to lit'aneg al Hashem, to have a relationship with God, to be close with God, to have right? That's the goal. Now we have the goal. Now how do we get there? So here's a beautiful idea that the Rav Kook explains about what is the truth about Esav. Why is it that there's certain people that say, live the moment, be here and now, and that's all there is, right? Eat and be merry, for tomorrow we'll die. Just right now, focus on the moment. What's the positive thing about it? Again, Esav takes it only to that, to the moment. But what's the positive thing? It says when God created the world, it says, and now I want there to be a tree Etz pri oseh pri. I wanted to be a tree that is fruit, that creates fruit. The tree itself was supposed to be fruit. What does that mean? The tree was just to eat the tree, not just the fruit. And then, because we see the world it was built into reality that there was some kind of imperfection that we obviously by the actions of Adam and Chava or whatever our actions revealed it. But there was already a malfunction that was, again, it's all for good reason, and by God there's no malfunctions in his like what we call a malfunction is God's, it's a plan. It's part of the world being, how you say, in pieces, and our job is to be partners with God in putting it together. Like the world's like something you buy, like a build it yourself closet. The world is build it yourself world, and we need to be partners with God in building it and bringing it to life and mantle. What's the opposite of mantling it? Because you say dismantling, so mantling it and mantling it, put together and building it. That's our job, to build the world in partners with God. So what is the beauty? What does this mean? What does it mean that the tree tastes like the fruit? It means that you enjoy the process just as much as you enjoy the fruit. So Esav says you have to enjoy the process just as much as enjoying the fruit and forget about the fruit. Because if the tree is the fruit, then forget about the fruit. Everything is all about the means. Take the means. Other people make a mistake when they say, no, it's only the Christians, for example, it's only about the fruit in the next world. This world is worthless. And just, we don't want this world to succeed. Don't have children. Don't get married. This world is just like despair from this world, but at least we know there's a fruit at the end. And we as Jews say, no, you have to enjoy the process, but you have to know there's the fruit. That's why you have to live, like we're saying, the soul of the next world is this world. This world the next world is already in this world. That's why the rabbis, when they used to bless each other, they used to say, I bless you, olamcha tireh b'chayecha. You should see your life in your life. You see your next life in your life. In other words, live in a reality where you reveal the next world. So the next world is not a place, it's a state of being. It's an existence where you experience, where you live in harmony with your body and your soul. So that's the idea. So what we mentioned so that was the first thing I wanted to say. One more nice idea that's very important to know. The Torah tells us that when Yaakov and Esav were born, they were fighting, right? They were fighting within the womb. Rashi says, why were they fighting within the womb? Rashi says they were fighting on who is going to. Rashi says, what does that mean? They were fighting inside of her. They were fighting about the two worlds, which is this world and the next world.
Fighting inside of her, are these like her twin sons?
The twin sons. So this is really a beautiful way to explain it. So they're fighting over the two worlds. What does that mean, the two worlds? So we know Yaakov, Esav came out. It says in Hebrew, the word for Esav, right? Esav is like this. Is the letters Asui, which means made. Esav came with coloring. He came with hair. He looked like a full-made human being. He came down, they're like, wow, he's made. He's like, but that's his philosophy. You are perfect the way you are. Accept yourself the way you are. You don't need to develop. You don't need to expand. Yaakov, on the other hand, is the Ekev. Yaakov says, no. You begin at a very low level. And you have incredible potential. And you have to bring out, in other words, bakoach, bafal, like in reality, you're on a very low level. But befall, in the potential, you can go so high. How do you become so high? Through work, through effort, through hard work. What is that hard work?
Torah.
He becomes Torah and developing your character and all the things. He becomes Yisrael. Okay, now let's explain this. Ekev, which is the heel, right, is the lowest place on the foot, lowest place that you are, your lowest place of your body. That's regel, Ekev. In Hebrew, regel is what's called habit, hergel, habits. A person that lives his life by habits is a person that is not on a very high level of existence. It's a person that his instincts, his desires, his low desires sort of lead him and guide him to where he wants to go. But a person has to become Yisrael. What is Yisrael? Ki sarita im anashim vatuchal. Because you have struggled with people and with angels, and you have with spiritual challenges, and you've struggled, you fought, and you became Yisrael. What is Yisrael? Li Rosh. Yisrael is the letters Li Rosh. So going from a foot to a person that leads his life through understanding, through depth, through decision making, through choice, through this means to become a full human being, a real human being is a person that lives his life with his mind. Of course, your emotions are also there, but they're how do you say, guided by the intellect, by the highest level of our existence. The Rambam says the Tzelem Elokim that we have, the image of God that's in us, is our intellect, and that's how that has to be the king of the leader and the guiding force of who we are. So that's a little idea, and an important thing to explain. This is very important to know. They're fighting on two worlds, which means there's many people who like to say, I want to have the best of both worlds. Mm-hmm. I'll have the philosophy of Esav, and I'll have the philosophy of Yaakov. Mm-hmm. They don't go together. They're exactly the opposite. Mm-hmm. They're exactly the opposite. It's like it says, if you want to be a student of Avraham Avinu, you have to have three things. Ayin Tova, you have to see everything with a good eye. Nefesh Shvela, you have to be a humble person. And a Ruach Nemucha, that you should not be a person that's after lust and desires and money and all these things. You have to be very able to control yourself. Mm-hmm. If you want to be a student of Bilam, you have to have three things. Ayin Ra'ah, you have to be a pessimistic intellect. You have to be a Nefesh Rechava, you have to know that there's one thing that you need to have. Pride, and you have to run after money all day long. You have to run after lust and respect. And now these are two schools of thoughts. It says if you want to be a student of Bilam, if you want to be a student of Avraham Avinu, there's two schools. You can't go to both schools. So, and these are two schools. Is it all the teaching how all day to run on money? There's people like this. Today it's very common, like Tony Robbins type of teachings, and it's very clear also. I don't know why he uses such foul language, which just shows you like this is not the clean, pure world that we're coming from. There at least becomes clear that this is not for us. But this whole running after money, and you're in this world for money. Money is only a means for a goal. But it becomes for these people, for this world of money, it becomes the goal. It becomes the end all. And it's not the Jewish way of thinking. You could be rich and you could be a Jew. The state of Israel has to be rich. You can do it, it's fine. But you have to understand what is the goal. So those were a few things that I want to explain, is that these two worlds, they don't coexist. They're fighting over two worlds of what's the reality, and you have to decide who's my teacher, which is my direction. You can't just go and say, I'll take this and I'll take that. It doesn't work. You have to make a decision. So we were talking about last week the 5 explanations of Olam Haba. The first one is talking to our soul, is a spiritual way of explaining it. How do we know that there's this world and the next world? Because the rabbis told us, and we believe them. King David told us. King David is, by the way, he's the star of the book. He's the star of he's the hero of this book, because he was a highest level of chassid, and he talks about the realities. And if you we talked about it last week, if you read Tehillim Ayin Gimel, it was the first pasuk he brought, and he shows you the big picture, how you see these people being successful, and you can't look and see, someone is successful, therefore he's the truth. So if America is a superpower, they must know everything about spirituality and everything else.
Ayin Gimel.
Ayin Gimel, 73. Tehillim 73 talks about the next world, talks about this struggle, that if you look things in your eyes, and you see these people that are evil and that are wicked, that are so successful, and they speak with a slippery tongue, and they know they're politicians, and they know how to fool you, and they know how to, and you see it, and then you see the righteous people that are, you have like some kind of corrupt person giving a concert, and 1 million people come to see him. The guy's on drugs, the guy's miserable, the guy's completely not a person that you would want to really admire or value. But 1 million people come to see him, and the greatest rabbi, if Shlomo Aviner comes to give a class there, you get 20 people come to a class. Like that's the world sometimes what you see, and therefore you have to look at a reality, at a different reality. And King David brings it to the final conclusion of that chapter. Where he says, Avina lacharitam. When I look at the big picture, when I see things in a different proportion, when I look at the time frame, when I look at what happens in the end, here we are, the Jewish people. Where are the Nazis? The Germans are killing themselves because they're not having children. They don't need to be killed. They don't need to be, obviously they haven't gotten their revenge for what they did to us, but they're doing it to themselves. They're destroying their whole, right? They have minus, I don't know how much birth rate. This is the reality. When you have the reality of serving God, this is the long picture, and this is the reality that we see in front of our eyes. What King David says, "Taroch lefanai shulchan neged sorerai." I set Mizmor David. He says, "I set my table before my enemies." That's the victory. When I'm here back in Israel, setting my table, rebuilding the state and the government and the army, and rebuilding my reality, that is the greatest defeat of, and that's something that you can only see by taking a step back and seeing things in a different proportion. Avina lecharitam. Look at that Tehillim 73. I look and I see what happens at the end. The only way to do it is when you see things in a different proportion, in a different perspective, and you take a step back. And that's the reality. And that's what the rabbis teach us. And that's the way to do it, is by understanding the soul of it. So we said the first thing was the rabbis told us. The second one is that we started talking about was that God put us in the world. God put us in the world. God put us in the world that there's so many things that are there to pull us away from God. What is that? The physical desires. If we get pulled after them, we're getting pulled away from true good. This is the problem. I'm looking for true good. What do you want? You ask anybody, what do you want in life? And you say, I just want good. Okay. But there are certain things that feel good, but are not good. Right? A person, this is what he says. God put us in this world, and there's things, the desires, the physical desires, the lust, and the things that are pulling you. Like a person who's getting pulled, chas v'shalom, to pornography. Why is he getting pulled there? A person is getting pulled there because he wants the highest level of feeling that you're creating is having a child. Mm-hmm. And a person wants to feel that he's in the state of creating. He feels big. He feels like he's alive. He's bringing life to the world. So the same way, there's two ways to get there. You want to be strong, you can take a shot of steroids, mm-hmm. and you'll have big muscles. Or you can work out for a year, 2 years, and every day for an hour and work out.
So the pornography is like
the pornography is like what's called steroids. It's steroids. It's like the quick fix. By the way, I just my son was asking me about investing in Bitcoin. So I called up a friend of mine I said, listen, I don't know about stocks, Bitcoin. Let me call a friend of mine who is a stock trader, and he does this he's 45 years. He's an expert. He invests for millions. I call him up. I say, could you give my son a quick lesson on should he invest in Bitcoin? And he says, and of course I was so happy to hear this. He said, it's called gambling. Mm-hmm. It's speculative. And the worst thing that could happen to you is that if you actually make money on it, because it's gambling. Mm-hmm. And if you make money on it, you're going to do it more. And I didn't know this, that the biggest addiction, bigger than any alcohol, drugs, the biggest addiction is gambling. I'm shocked.
Gambling is...
Which is actually the biggest thing. But it's the
Play
idea
game
that
where
it's
you,
the idea that people have. It's the idea. It's the mistake that people have.
Making money without working.
It's the idea that people have. Again, it's this. We're always looking for a shortcut. We're always looking for the quick fix, the shortcut. And even though, I mean, my son is someone who he's 4 years in the army and he killed himself, and like, so he understands that you have to work hard for things that you want, things that are valuable, you invest in, things that are, and it's like that in everything. If you want to make money, go work hard and make money, or invest in something that is solid, that is not, so you'll make small profit, but it's solid and it exists and it's real. And don't look for the shortcut, don't look for the quick fix. And I was so happy I got that lesson, because, and that's the Jewish way of thinking, of a solid, a plan, and things that are real. So this is what the Ramchal says, and I just love the way he writes, so beautiful, that he says, God put us in the world, that all these things are pulling us away from him. The physical desires, the lust, and if you go after it, if you allow those desires to pull you, you're going away, you're distancing yourself from the true good. So when you find yourself being pulled after something that you don't want to go to, you just say to yourself, right, if I want true good, I have to go the other way. Because I'm going there because I think it's good, but I know it's not true good. It's going to take further, I'm taking a further way to get to the good, because I'm going after that. So I want good. It's not a struggle between it's good and now I'm going to have no good. No, it's the good. You're going to have a greater good if you just control, like Yosef, for example. He did not go with Potiphar's wife. It would have felt good if he would have gone with her for a few minutes. He didn't. What happened? 13 years in prison. But he became the king of Egypt. But the idea is, even if he wouldn't have become the king of Egypt, so the next world he would have been getting the reward for doing that act and that control. But God gives us a taste in this world of that it's the right thing, but it doesn't happen like this. It doesn't happen, how do you say, cause and effect. That's the thing. There's a great story of a rabbi named Rabbi Bar Bar Chana, and he goes to, there's all these agadata, these how do you say, imaginary stories that you're supposed to learn some kind of spiritual aspect, and Rav Kook discusses it in depth. Tells a story of this Rabbi Bar Chana, and he had this tour guide used to take him to these places, imaginary places. This tour guide takes him to a place that heaven and earth touch. And he gets to this place, and there's like a window, and he hangs up his bag with all his things, and he goes to pray. And when he opens up his eyes after he's done prayers, there's no bag. And he turns to his tour guide. The place that heaven and earth connect, there's thieves. They stole my bag. And he says, no, don't worry. It's a circle. You hung your bag up. It's a circle, and it comes around every 24 hours. The message of the story is that we don't believe in our world that heaven and earth can connect. And that's what our goal is, to connect heaven, to connect the body and the soul, to connect this world and the next world. But when you do that, you make an investment, and you understand that I am going to give up. Yes, there's a lot we give up to serve God. There's a lot we give up. I was just hearing a beautiful story from one of the great rabbis. I mentioned him last week, Rav Yigal Levinstein. He's talking how he did tshuva. And the main reason he did tshuva was because 3 things that happened in the army that made him do tshuva. He never met a religious person. And it comes to time to eat. There was a limited amount of food. The guy went to wash his hands. The food was gone. What are you doing? That was 1. 2, they slept 2 hours a night. And this guy got up early to daven and gave up on those limited amount of sleep. He's like, this person's made up of different material. And then they were gone for 6 weeks. It was finally time to go home. They made a lottery, and four guys were supposed to stay. And this guy was a religious guy. And he says this guy wasn't like the most righteous, or he was just a simple guy. This guy walks up to these 4 guys. They're supposed to leave Friday, but he couldn't make it back for Shabbos. It was too far. Comes to the 4 guys, do a lottery between you who's going to go, because I'm staying for Shabbos. And to us, it seems like obvious things, but he saw this. This is a huge investment, a huge sacrifice. But that's what it is to be a Jew. You sacrifice, but you don't lose anything. You get it back many million times over. And even if you again, even if you don't get it, that closeness to God, what we're talking about is what it's all about. So
So you said that as also he was he
Hey.
came up fully developed in his worldview that he did not need to improve himself.
there's no need to improve yourself except yourself. Not only you don't need to improve yourself. If you try to, the same way we go to the bathroom, right, and you have to allow your negative, your waste to be put out, and you don't hold it in. So you're going against God if you're not allowing your desires to just express themselves how they want.
And
So you're going against God if you try to conquer your nature, to go against your nature. Your nature wants something, you're going against God because God created you with that nature. But we say there's a miracle. What does it mean, a miracle? The nature changed. The same way nature can change, we can change, and we have to change. And our job is to change our nature.
Right.
So these are two opposite philosophies. You're either perfect the way you are, there's nothing to change, or you have a lot of potential and you have to change. You have to change. We explained it last week. It doesn't mean change. It means become balanced. It means to not be at any extremes of sadness or too much happiness or too much laziness or too much, or whatever it is, to become balanced. Yes.
I've got two questions now. The first one is, would it be too early to ask that doing something, a mitzvah or a mitzvah, and longing for a reward or afraid of being punished, would that not consider as the lowest level of spirituality?
That's a great question, because we mentioned before, thank you for asking that. When we mentioned that when you have a character that you want to acquire, okay, Zeirut, the first character is to become a person that pays attention, a person that takes control of his life. So you have to understand the overview, you have to understand what you have to do, and then you have to have motivation, which is called kniya. And then you have to do, what you have to do is the upkeep and the wear and tear, the maintenance. How do you motivate yourself is based on 3 personality types. The Ramchal, like we said, everything is systematic. And this is not a matter of someone's better or someone's worse. There's 3 types of personality types that get motivated. One level he calls Hamona'am. The mass people, what motivates them is they don't want to have pain and they want to have pleasure. That's it. So that is the way they motivate themselves. This is who I am. And people are born this way. You're born with one of these 3 personalities. He calls it Hamona'am, or the Prutim, which is someone who is, and the Shlemei Hadat.
So the goal is not to change where you are; it's to figure out which one you are and then use it as your tool.
Exactly. In other words, the Ramchal gives a taster of each one of these 3, and he says, "What got you excited?" And then you say, "That got me excited." Now, I will direct you to the whole library that has, like, if you are Shlemei Hadat, Shlemei Hadat are people that they have to be excited about it. They're perfectionists. They need, so there's a whole library that has books, and Rav Kook wrote books on tshuva that are for Shlemei Hadat. This book you will not see at all about punishment or reward. All you'll see is about your partners with God, and it's an incredible, just for Shlemei Hadat. And then you have I forgot what the Sharei Tshuva, which is for the Hamona'am. And each person has, again, even the highest level of people. Like there's a story of Rav Amram Chasida. To be called Chasid was like very rare. He was on a very high spiritual level. Rav Amram Chasida was on the highest spiritual level. They used to bring these women when there was war. They would take these women, and the women would be there to seduce the men. They'd be dressed in a very difficult, way, and they would tell them to try to take the men in. So they brought back these women they captured these women, whatever. Didn't know where to keep these women. So they said, we'll put them by Rav Amram Chasida. He's like 90 years old. He's very sick. He's very old. They put them on in his house, there was a very high loft that you need 10 people to move the ladder in order to climb up there, and they put all these beautiful women up there. Anyway, in the middle of the night, they hear from the house of Rav Amram Chasida somebody screaming, "Fire! Fire! Please come! Put out the fire! Help! Help!" They slam the door open. There he is, Rav Amram Chasida. He moved the ladder by himself. Sick and 90 years old, he moved the ladder by himself. He was halfway up the ladder going to these women. They open the door, they say, "Rabbi, you're embarrassing us." He said, "I'd rather embarrass you in this world than not me be embarrassed in the next world." So that we see that he had to use the lowest level of how do you say, he was at his, sometimes you need to tap into, you're not on the very, like Shema Yisrael just won't do it.
Right.
God is one, and understanding on the level of the soul. Sometimes you have to tap into the lower levels. But there's some people that's the main thing they need all the time. And that's the Ramchal talks about it. And he gives examples on how to know who you are, what motivates you. By the way, just on a side note, the Rav Kook said it's very important. And I highly recommend you all that you could be sitting in a class, right? And the rabbi says something and you go, "Wow, that really hit home." If something hit home, write a book of all the things that hit home, because that's your personal book. It doesn't have to be chedushim. It could just be you compiling things that hit you, because every person has a different. And if that hit you, that was an incredible gift. That's something you need to repeat. It means that it's connected to you. So every person needs to write himself his own book of things that excite you, that motivate you, and then you go back and you read it, and it ignites it again. Because it's a gift when something like that happens, when something hits home and you say, "Wow, that's exactly what I needed to hear." And 10 people are sitting in the class, they're looking around. What was so great about that? Because every person is different, and you need that. Yeah.
So regarding Yaakov, he came out underdeveloped, and this is an allegory for how he thought he needs to continuously improve on himself.
Exactly. Yaakov says to Esav, "V'ani et nahala le'iti." I go slow. I'm not like, like these people have smartphones, right? Okay, so Yaakov has like a dumb phone. I have to go to my house to the computer that has like a protection and go. It's very slow. I do it fast. Right? What's up? Everything. Yeah, I move slow. I go slow. I'm not so technically understanding. Yeah. What do you mean? Just look up on Google? No, I need to go and open books and read it and actually. So we are in a different speed. Where it's a different. How do you say? Yes, we go slow. Yes, it comes on the condition of. I mean, I guess I wish I had the courage to have a dumb phone, because these things are time bombs that are, even with the protections on it and everything, it's a time bomb waiting to explode.
It has always been,
You got to be willing to pay a price of slowing down.
It has always been a mixed feeling regarding these topics, because every time you read any book, say Gemara, we are learning Gemara, and Kafta we start learning, and there's always a paragraph that says, okay, do this mitzvah, but you're doing it for a benefit of something. Okay, I'll do this, I'm going to rest, but I'm going to do a mitzvah again by standing up and respecting another one. So I kept thinking, why are these tzaddikim talking in this level? You understand? So now I understand.
But I'll tell you one more thing.
Yeah.
Another thing is very important. It says in the Mishnah in Pirkei Avot,
Right.
Al tiyeh ke'eved shemishamesh et harav al menat lekabel pras. It says a very long line. Do not be a servant that serves the master in order to get a reward. Ela heyeh ke'eved, but you should be a servant that serves God, not on the condition to get a reward. So the rabbis don't use extra words because they want to be poetic or because they want to fill in space. Every letter, every word is calculated. What does this teaching tell us, the Mishnah? That there's two levels. The first level is a person who serves God. Otherwise, they would have said, you're not allowed to serve God for a reward. We're saying, no, you're allowed to serve God for a reward. Halavai, we should all serve God for a reward. That's the first level.
Right.
Then there's another level, which is a person that serves God not for a reward. For example, you have a doctor who's a very good doctor, but he charges $100,000 for a procedure and he saves lives. Is he a bad doctor? No, he's a good doctor, and it's okay. He worked hard. He knows he's good, and he charges a lot of money for it and saves lives. It's called lo lishma. That's great. Then there's a higher level of a person that goes out to a place that people need it and does it for free because he just wants to save lives. So that's a higher level. But the lower level is not something that is unacceptable or wrong, or it's okay to serve God for a reward.
It's a kind of a stepping stone to go to the next level.
Exactly. It could be a stepping stone, or and it's a very high level if we could reach it. It's okay. That's what he talks about, the motivation. So these guys, the Prutim, what motivates them is a spiritual. They want to have respect. They want to have a olam haba. They want to have a spiritual. They want to feel satisfaction in their life. Wonderful. You want to serve God because you want to feel satisfaction, and you want to feel that you have, like, you're spiritually uplifted, and you have this joy in your life. You see sometimes these rabbis that are beaming of joy. Their spiritual world gives them an incredible joy. That's what I want to have. That's okay. That's wonderful. There's nothing wrong in that. If I could do it only for the sake of serving God, because I don't want anything, I just wanted to do the will of God in the world, that's the higher level. But that's a very, so
if you go low lishma for long enough, it turns like inevitably, if you're doing it right, it turns into
right.
lishma.
That's also what we're talking about here in the steps that the Ramchal talks about. He says Torah meviah lidei zehirut. If you learn Torah, you'll start becoming a cautious, careful person. It happens automatically. Zehirut meviah lidei zrizut. If you become a cautious person, you'll actually become a person that's full of excitement and passion. What's the chiddush of the Ramchal? Because if we could just learn Torah, I'll become careful, I'll become, right? Why do I need to learn Mesilat Yesharim? Because this is focused in on, if I learn Torah, right, I'll learn Gemara, and I'll read a story that this person did a good thing. After 50 years, maybe I'll become a good person. Here, it's focused in on, it's like a laser focused on how do you become a better person, how do you develop your character, how do you become doing mitzvahs with excitement and passion. So because it's how do you say, it's not going to take you 40 years, you're going to have to do it right now because it's all compiled and organized in one place. So it helps us do the process faster. Now here is what
can I ask you another one before we go to another subject? We're talking about the gambling part. Like in this era, we have different forms of gambling. Like the profession itself has become a gambling. Even the time when I was a kid, I remember it was put on the table. Either you want to become a government administrator, you want to become a doctor, engineer, different type of profession.
Why is it gambling? Yeah?
Because we have to choose which profession gives you more money. So it's more like same thing.
No, but that's not gambling. Why is that? Choosing a profession is a mistake. Instead of a person choosing what his passion is, he's choosing what's considered accepted in society, or what's considered making the most amount of money.
Exactly. What is the most job?
That's part of Bilam's world. Bilam's world is not about let's tap into where your calling is in life. You don't. That's why I always say to my kids, you don't ask your kids, what do you want to do when you're big? What do you have to do? What's your passion? What's your excitement? What's your calling? And who cares if it's something that has value or doesn't have value? If your passion is to be, like me, I'm a fundraiser. It's something that is not very valued. It's considered, you're a schnorrer. You beg people for money. It's not considered very prestigious. But it's my calling. It's my passion. I love it, and I'm happy and I'm doing it. I wouldn't change it for anything else. So that's why a person has to be really, really sensitive to who he is. You need to pray. You need to take private time. You need to really and ask yourself, what is my calling in life? What is my gift that I have to give to the world? So what if it's something that doesn't make a lot of money? If it means being a teacher, if it means being a social worker, if it's something that this is my calling, that's what you have to do. You have to trust God, and you have to be willing to, because that is your place in the world. And unfortunately, people that don't do that, that's what creates depression, because the soul doesn't hold back. If the soul is not being fed, is not being expressed, then depression starts, and depression leads to all kinds of substance abuse and all kinds of distractions to not feel the pain of the soul, and it's a slippery slope, and it goes to a bad place. So the bottom line is a person has to be very sensitive and very, very careful to choose what his calling is. And like you said, it's not gambling, but it's definitely not connecting to your purpose of why you were created. God created you for a purpose and for a reason and for something that's important. Everything in this world, we said, God put us in a very strong war. It says that a drunk person, another word for, we said zehirut is the opposite of being habit or drunk. A person that's drunk is a person that is not present, does not have freedom of choice. And therefore, God put it, so it says a drunk person, Shlomo Melech says, Natan eno bekoso v'domeh alav ha'olam kemisho. A drunk person drinks his drink, and everything is good. Everything is smooth. There's no bumps. There's no ups. There's no how do you say, pit holes, right? Everything is smooth. Everything is a straight
It's a
path.
flat line.
Flat line. Domeh alav ha'olam kemisho. Mesilat Yesharim is a flat line, but it comes through work, through effort to clear the path, to walk on a straight path. Yes, that comes from work. That comes from you're actually, today they're making these roads through the mountains. It's you're plowing through the mountain. You're creating your path, a straight path, but it's coming through hard work and effort, not just because. I always tell my kids, unfortunately, there's slang that you have to be very careful. Slang is very dangerous, and like they started saying, "Hakol tov, everything is good." Not everything is good. Hakol letova, everything is for good. Everything will lead to good, but that journey might be very difficult. It's not a good journey. Everything right. So you should. The Gemara says, "Lo olam yargil adam leshono lomar, kol man navid lachman atava." You should always get your tongue used to saying, Hakol letova. Everything is for good. Everything is for good. Just say it all the time. Every time you smack your head, Hakol letova, Hakol letova. You lose money, you miss the bus, whatever it is. Just get used to saying that. Hakol letova, but not Hakol tov, right? So the Ramchal tells us, because everything that God created in this world, whether it's good or bad, it's all a test. God is testing us all the time. Whether you're rich, whether you're poor, whether you're sick, whether you're healthy, whether you have a calm life or whether you have a full of challenges. And here the Rav Kook says that the Ramchal is telling us that the challenges are there to really to test our moral state, right? Whatever challenge is, it's this, where are you morally? But the Rav Kook adds, they're not just there to test you where you are morally, they actually are there to bring you and to form you to become moral. In other words, and this is such an important thing, we're always wishing that we were somewhere else. I don't want to be here, I want to be there. If I was just rich, I wouldn't have any problems. If I was just married, I wouldn't have any problems. If I just had kids, I wouldn't have any problems. If I just had, right, we always have, our minds are always somewhere else. But the Ramchal is telling us that's not true. If you just understand that God is testing you at every moment, and you have the tools to pass the test, and you accept that this is where I need to be, this is where I want to be, and this is where my success comes from, I don't want to be somewhere else. That is to come peace with that. That is what we said. Talk about. That's that he talks about. You'll come out of that corridor, and you'll go into the light. That's what he says. And according to the amount that you conquered your desires, and you distanced yourself from that good, from that the things that pull you away from the good, you will be successful, and you will have this great joy. And after saying this statement, my rabbi explained, after this, what we just read, this paragraph, many people say, I don't want to be in this world, because you're telling me that this world is struggles, challenges, everything is a challenge. Rich, healthy, poor, sick, married, not married, everything's a challenge. So I don't want to be in this world. That's why the Ramchal brings us the next chapter. Im Tamik, look in depth, go in depth, and you'll understand. Don't say I don't want to be in this world. The world was created to serve you. Don't say I don't want to be in this world. What are you talking about? It's not just that you want to just get by and just get through these 120 years and make it through the suffering. No. The world was created to serve you. And yes, as we said, if you allow yourself to get pulled after the world and the desires, you'll destroy yourself and you'll destroy the world. But if you control yourself, and that's the secret word, the Rambam talks about the middle path, and he says there's a person that all he wants is desires and lust on one side, calls it a mental illness. And there's a person on the other side that has no desires for any physical things, calls it a mental illness. What's the middle path? Ipuk, constraint, self-control, constraint. Looking at the cake, you want to eat the whole cake. You say, no, I won't touch the cake. No. Take a sliver, control yourself, enjoy that sliver. I put it in the world, take a taste, enjoy it. Okay, you can't take a taste and not eat the whole cake, so don't eat it for now. But understand that's not the way to do it. The real way to do it is enjoy this world. And when you control yourself and when you use this world to help you serve God, as we said before, the world is the means, it's not the goal. The goal is getting close to God. You uplift yourself and you uplift the world. And it's very interesting. I don't know if you heard the Mishnah in Pirkei Avot says, remember you come from a putrid drop. What does this mean? Right? Mitipas sucha. The word sucha means to mekulkal. It means something that is right. Masriach means smelly, means something that is stinks or something's mekulkal. Right? Hisriach means it got ruined. You have the same way fruit has to be refrigerated. You have to protect yourself that you don't become ruined. That you have to also preserve yourself, guard yourself. That's when we talk about the first chapter. He goes in depth explaining it, but he says it's such an uplifting for all of the creations of this world. When they serve the perfect man, the perfect Adam Shalem, who's holy, and that's what we see with Yaakov when he uplifted the stones. Every aspect of this world, even the most lowest aspect, which is a stone, inanimate, is waiting for meaning, for purpose. How does it get meaning and purpose? The stones and every physical reality of this world by being partner, by helping a person who's there, understands his reality of serving God. That's what gives the world, takes it out of this, how do you say, blindness, or takes it out of this meaningless. It's like we're going to talk it later on when we talk about what makes you lose, the character. So there's 3 things that make you lose it, and it's incredible. The Ramchal. One is when you become a workaholic, right? You overwork. 2 is leitzanut, and 3 is chevra. So the society, what will make you lose? You worked so hard, you came to Machon Meir, and you were in such a good place, and you were growing spiritually. You go back to your life, you go to work. You either become a workaholic and everything's gone, or you become, the society, people that you're with, and, they don't value, the things you do. So you end up like wanting to fit in, and you throw it away. A person's willing to give up a lot to feel that he fits in. Everyone wants to fit in. Makes them feel safe. It makes them feel, accepted. And the third thing is making a joke about everything. Becoming cynical, becoming you want to be the heart of the party, you want to make jokes, you want to fit in, you want to be cool. People get sucked into that. But what does it mean to be serious? Right? In Hebrew we say someone who's serious is a ratzini. Ratzini. What does that mean? It means ratzon Hashem. You see the will of Hashem in everything. A person that understands that there's a will of Hashem in this stone. I can use this stone to serve God. I can use this whatever reality is to help me get close to God. Like Yaakov, he went to sleep, and his sleeping was what is service of God. And the stones that he put his head on so he could sleep, or protected his head from the animals, or they were partners with Yaakov in serving God. And so that is the next way he explains it, is that when God created Adam and Chava, he took them around the world and he said, look at this world I made for you. Everything I created for you, be careful not to destroy it, because the state, right, is don't destroy it. And what do we learn from this? That like we said, the main purpose is the next world. And that's what the rabbis have many, many explanations for this, that whoever, like the relationship between this world and the next world is like the relationship between Friday, the 6 days of the week, and Shabbat, which is it's a parable, right? You're working all week, 6 days. On Friday, you're working, and you're not going to enjoy your meal on Friday. You're going to enjoy it on Shabbos. So why are you investing all this effort and all this time? Why should I do all these mitzvahs and all these things in this world when I'm not even going to enjoy it in this world? Because there is the next world. The next world is in a reality, and that's you have to again, you have to see things in a new perspective, in a new proportion of understanding that God split up the worlds. There's the world of work, and there's the world of the reward. Hayom la'masotam u'machar lekabel scharam. And the same way he says, for example, like the ocean and the land. You're on the land, and you want to take a cruise. As long as you're on the land, you could plow, you could harvest, and you could prepare. You can take with you all of the produce. But once you go on the ocean, that's it.
So Hashem made two worlds.
Two worlds: the world of work and the world of pleasure. Now, of reward? Now, what happens is the Western world says this is the world of pleasure. Mm-hmm. So what happens? You have millions of people, billions of people, largest growing disease is depression.
Is that why they're
depression? If you understand this world of work, and you wake up in the morning, you're like, I want to work because this is the world of work. So you're always happy because there's always an opportunity to do work and withstand the tests and to serve God. But if you say the world is pleasure, you're always depressed because the pleasure is just so limited. You get the pleasure, it's done, and you need more pleasure, you need more action. Yeah, go ahead.
Is that why Westerners are degenerates?
I don't know if degenerates. That's why Westerners, the largest growing disease is the depression. Because depression is, you told me this is the world of an amusement park. I'm not having fun. I want my money back. Right? That's it. What's going on? I came here to have a fun ride. Now I have to wake up in the morning for the baby. I have to wake up at night, and my wife, she has needs, and I have to actually talk to her. And right? Whoa. But when you stand, it's the world of work. Like I tell people when they get married. Here you are at the wedding, and you're thinking to yourself, wow, this is it just doesn't get better. I won the lottery. I won the fortune. I say, no. You won the map to the fortune. You wake up in the morning, you put on your working boots, you put on your shovel, and you say to your wife, let's go. We're going to dig. We're going to work. And that's, if you come with that headspace, then you reach the milestones. Your relationship just keeps getting better and better and better and better because you're working together on developing your character. You get married. You both need to develop yourself. And when you're with another person, right, you're in your house. You don't have to develop yourself. That's God's trick, God's way to help you develop your character. Puts you with somebody. If you're living alone, go to your apartment, close the door, you're done. But if you're living with somebody, hey, get your act together. I can't, whoa, this is you have no choice. You have to actually become a better person.
So the world of pleasure, would we say it's the next world?
Yes.
Olam Haba?
The world of pleasure is the next world. In this world, God gave us a very important gift, which is Shabbat. There's a mitzvah to taste the Shabbos food before Shabbos. It's a mitzvah to know there is Olam Haba. It's a mitzvah to be aware of it, to understand it, to learn about it, what we're doing here.
The next world is Olam Haba.
And like we said in the last class, and then I have to end with this, we said that the world is, right? That this world is the hallway to the hall. First of all, they're under one roof. So this world and the next world, they're not two separate realities. They're under one roof. Just that this is the hallway, and the hallway is dark, and this is the hall, which is full of billions of lights. Here, everything is clear, your relationship to God. And what is our job in this class and our whole life? Is to open the door, this is what Tzvi Yehuda said, and allow the billions of lights of the next world to illuminate the dark world of this world. A person that lives with the concept of Olam Haba, that I'm on the way to Olam Haba, that I'm connected to Allah, that I'm connected to my soul, that I'm connected to the spirituality, to the will of God. He opens the light, and he's living in a world of reality, of light, even though he's still in the passage, because you understand this is just the passage. This is not the final and end all. It's not the goal. It's the means to the goal. So that's basically, we didn't make it till the end, but we got close. We only have a little bit left.
So I have a question. Would it be inaccurate to describe Olam Haba, the next world, as heaven? Is this inaccurate?
Like we said, Olam Haba, heaven, is not a place. It's an existence. It's a state of being. It's a reality. And that's what we're trying to say. It's a reality. It's something that exists now. Olam Haba is not, I'll get there and I'll see it. It exists now. You live your life now. The choices you make are based on Olam Haba,
So it's a reality of existence that we can only see after we die.
right? But we can be aware of it, is what we're learning about here now, and make our choices based on it.
And can you write it on the board with Nigadot by any chance?
Olam Haba,
Olam Haba.
with these kind of letters or the other kind, or like this. Olam. So here, Olam Haba.
So it's Olam.
Olam, which means world. Haba, which is coming, or the next one, or like we said, yeah, you can turn it off. I gotta go. Thank you guys. We almost made it to the end, and I'm happy you guys.